channel. Welcome to the September/October book video. I'm still relatively new to these book videos. I did a September TBR or to be read video, and that was really my first one, but I've been obsessively watching these kinds of videos and enjoying them. I've also been obsessively reading lately, so I think it's time for me to jump on this bandwagon here, and it's just kind of a fun way for me to keep track too. I was hoping to read 50 books this year, and I'm already well into the 30s, so yeah, super excited. But anyway, I'm just gonna jump right in. I have a little notebook here with the books that I read in September and my thoughts on those, and then I have my stack of October TBR or to be read here as well. So I'm really excited to share those. There are a couple of channels that I've really been enjoying lately that do these types of videos frequently, so I will link those in the description box below for you so you can check them out if you'd like. I also do read some books on my Kindle, so I did purchase a Kindle Paperwhite right before we left on vacation. So I was using my iPad, but now I'm using this and I love it. And I primarily do true crime books on my Kindle right now. I have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, and those are books that I probably not going to want to read again. I mean, those are not stories that you usually want to read more than once. At least I don't. So I thought that would be a good use of my Kindle Unlimited subscription for now, to add a few books every month. But anyway, all of that said, let's jump into the September books. So I read all 6 of the books on my September TBR list, plus one additional one. So 7 books in September. I feel pretty good about that. I think that's more books than I've read in a month in a long time. So yeah, super excited. The first book is a true crime book that I read on my Kindle. It's called Too Young to Kill by William Phelps. It's the story of Adrienne Reynolds, a 16-year-old girl who was killed by 2 of her classmates. And it was a super sad story. Just drugs and sex and violence and a girl who just got in with the wrong crowd, kind of. A story we sadly hear too often, but it was a good book. I gave it 3 stars, which is low for me when it comes to true crime, because I really enjoy true crime books, but it was very slow in that the details of, I mean, a true crime book always kind of starts with the details of the person's life leading up to what happened, but it was like they told you the whole, the gist of everything that happened, the crime itself at the beginning, and then just very painfully slowly made the story lead up to how it had happened. It could have been maybe about 50 to 100 pages shorter, in my opinion, and still told the story well. But that said, it was still a very interesting story. If you like true crime, I would recommend William Phelps. I've read one of his books previously, and it was still very entertaining, but I would give that one 3 stars. The next book was called Next Door Savior, by Max Lucado. I love Max Lucado's books. They are nonfiction. They are almost kind of storytelling, but also biblical application to daily life kind of books. He does them on a variety of topics. And this one was basically just reminding us of how relatable Jesus is in our daily life, that he came to earth and became man, and he walked in our shoes. There's nothing we can experience that he didn't experience. So yeah, just a very good reminder that he is a nearby friend, not an out there impersonal God. So I really enjoyed that. I gave that one a 5-star. It was well written, easy to read. His books are always easy to read, just super applicable. It also kind of was, a lot of the chapters were very appropriate for where I am currently in my life, so I think that helped too. But yeah, definitely would recommend that. Shorter books, so a very quick read. The next book was called The Second Century Church by Mike Kruger, and it was basically a history of the church of the 2nd century, a time when a lot of the books of the Bible became canon, and there were just a lot of varying different, I don't know if you'd call them denominations or sects or what you would call them, but different groups that were not quite in sync with the version of Christianity they were following. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it was very, very historical, very just kind of the workings of the church from the first century, like biblical times, through into that second century. And it was very interesting. I rated it a 3-star only because it was very dry. The subject matter was very interesting, so that's why I say it was interesting. But the author himself, I don't know, it felt very much like a college course. I had read a previous book about Christian history that was just so, like, it felt almost kind of interactive and alive, like you felt like you were there. This felt much more like a textbook, kind of. So the information was great and solid, but a little more dry and could tend to get kind of boring sometimes. So that's why I gave it a 3-star rating. But if you're interested in the history of the church, it was still very solid information and very interesting. But yeah, not my absolute favorite. So the next one was a Star Wars book. I'm reading through the Star Wars Legends book, all of the books that were written, the original canon. And this one was called Cloak of Deception. The storylines were, well, the author was James Luceno. We'll say that first. And that ding in the background is my work email, so I apologize if you hear that. Just because I'm on a break doesn't mean my emails take a break. But yeah, so Star Wars Cloak of Deception, James Luceno, I think it was. And the story centers around Chancellor Valorum, and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Yoda and all of your favorite Jedi characters are in there. We're leading into the more classic era where it's starting to be in line with the movies, so that's making it kind of interesting. And yeah, it's kind of the end of Valorum's reign here. We're getting very close to episode 1. So I found it very, very good. I think this author does a really good job. I've read a couple of other Star Wars books by him, and the story had a pretty good pace. It kept moving. I gave it 3.5 stars only because I'm struggling with leaving the old Republic and the Sith and those books because they were so good. And now it's kind of like, yeah, we already know some of these stories, so it's going to be much harder. My bar is going to be set much higher to get a 4 or a 5-star rating for these, just because of the content. But it was good. It was a well-written book. I enjoyed it. And it was a pretty fast read, too. I also read 2 of the Left Behind books, the final 2 of the Left Behind series written by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. I think they were written back in the 90s or early 2000s. Excellent books, seem a little more applicable today as it feels like the Second Coming is definitely closer. But so the first one I read was called Armageddon, and as the title would suggest, it's the beginning of Armageddon in the end times. And then the last one is called Glorious Appearing, and that is when Jesus returns. I gave Armageddon a 4 stars. It was great, super great. A little dark in some places because of the subject material, obviously, but really good writing, really fast-paced, really interesting. And the Glorious Appearing gets a 5-star for me simply because Jesus comes back. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So while this book is fiction and it's just one man's, or 2 men, I guess, and their interpretation of the biblical events, they stay very true to scripture, and yeah, just absolutely fantastic book series. I would highly recommend if you've never read them. Yeah, so definitely enjoyed those. And then the last one was by Ruth Ware. She is one of my absolute favorite mystery writers. And that book is called One by One. It's a group of people in the French Alps, and they are stranded in an avalanche, and there's a lot of murder. And one by one, people disappear. It's a chilling book. Her books are some of my favorite mysteries, but whoo, this one was good. I had no clue. I was completely blindsided by who it was at the end that was responsible for the murders. So highly, highly recommend. But yeah, those were my September reads. Overall, a pretty good month, I would say. So moving right along into my TBR for October, I have 7 books on my TBR for October, which is the same number that I read in September. So it feels ambitious, but at the same time, I'm already so far into, well, not far, but a couple of chapters into each of these books, and I feel like I think I'm going to do more than this month. So we'll see. But I'm going to start with the Kindle Unlimited books. So I'm reading 2 books right now. The first one is called Irreparable. And the author is, as I'm having trouble reading this here, the author is Mark, I think it's Garrido, but I'm not positive how to pronounce that. And the other is We Thought We Knew You by William Phelps, the author of the true crime book that I read in September. So those are the two covers there. Irreparable or Irreparable, however you want to say that, is the author is actually the husband in the story. So I just started reading it, but basically his wife killed his soon-to-be ex-wife. Yeah, his soon-to-be ex-wife. He is getting a divorce from his wife and has moved on with another woman. And his ex-wife appears to have killed the other woman. They're both dead. So we're learning the story right now. We're learning the backstory right now, but seems kind of twisty and turny and interesting. And We Thought We Knew You is a story of Bill and Mary Yoder, which is a really Amish sounding name, but they are not Amish. But they are a couple who owns a chiropractic practice, and I don't know a lot about the story yet. I don't like to read a ton of these true crime stories before I start. But right now she's very sick. So I think I probably know where that's going, but that's all I know about those 2 at the moment. Like I said, I don't like to read a ton ahead of true crime books because I don't like to know too much of the story unless it's a story that I already know, but I've never heard of these stories before. So we'll see how those are. I am reading another one of these Zondervan Counterpoints books. I don't know if I talked about the other one much on YouTube or not, but it's basically 3 different authors or scholars talking about 3 different viewpoints of biblical topics. So the last one we did was on the rapture, and this one is the millennium and beyond. So it's 3 different viewpoints on the millennium, premillennial, postmillennial, and amillennial. I don't know a whole lot about any of them, except that in reading the synopsis on the back, I do know that premillennial describes what I have always been raised to believe about the millennium, and that's the 1,000-year reign when Christ returns. So it's nonfiction, biblical based, should be very, very interesting. Excited about reading that. I like reading those 3 kind of opposing viewpoints and just kind of hearing how they all compare. All very well researched and very interesting, at least the Rapture book was. So another Star Wars book, of course. And this one's called Darth Maul Shadow Hunter by Michael Reeves. I don't think I've read a book by him yet in the Star Wars series, but clearly this is going to be about Darth Maul. So I think he is one of the coolest looking characters for sure. So we'll see how that one goes. I haven't hated a Star Wars book yet, I don't think. So I am also reading George Orwell's 1984. It's like almost wild in the first couple chapters how applicable it is to current day life in certain aspects. Yeah, it's a dystopian book basically, about how this person thought the world was going to be, I guess, in 1984. And it wasn't like that in 1984, but it is certainly becoming more that way now in a lot of aspects. But very quirky yet interesting so far. So we'll see how we like that. I've wanted to read that for years because I've just heard it referenced, but more and more it seemed applicable to the times. So I'm reading another Jean Cooney book. This is what you would call a cozy mystery. She is the author of the Hot Dish Heaven books. I think I talked about one of those in my September video. I can't remember if I did or not, honestly, but I've read the 3 Hot Dish Heaven books. They're excellent. They're murder mysteries that take place in small town Minnesota. This is the 4th book, and I think her most recent book, and this is not related to the Hot Dish Heaven storyline, but it looks to be a very similar type of whodunit murder mystery in small town Minnesota. So I'm excited about that. I love a good murder mystery. And then the last one for October is called Then She Was Gone. Lisa Jewell. I like her a lot. similar style to Ruth Ware in my opinion, but yeah, really, really good mystery books. This one is about Ellie Mack, a young girl who disappeared when she was 15. Looks like we're taking place 10 years later now with her family, kind of trying to figure out where is she still alive, all of that, the mystery of what happened to her. And so far what I've read, it's back and forth between then and now, and I really love books that do that with like the flashback type thing. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. So that is my TBR list for October. 2 mysteries with Then She Was Gone and It's Murder, Don't You Know? So those will be fun. And then my dystopian novel, 1984. The Star Wars book, of course. The Millennium comparison book, which is going to be almost more like Bible study format. Very interesting. And then my 2 Kindle true crime books, which has taken me a while to learn how to use this Kindle since it's new, so it took me a minute to get those to pull back up. But yeah, Irreparable and We Thought We Knew You. So I'm really, really excited to get into these books and see if I can read these and even more. I think I'm cautious because I could hit a wall here, but I think I want to say I think I could hit 10 books in October, which would be 3 more than this. I think I'm going to say right now that I'm fairly certain I'm going to get to 10 books read in October. Let's see how that pans out when I do my October video. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you maybe got some good recommendations. And I am always looking for book recommendations. So if there are any books out there that you think sound like something I would enjoy based on what I've talked about so far, or that are some of your favorites, I would love to hear about it. Send me a comment or a message or whatever. And if any of you follow any really great book or reading related YouTube channels, let me know, send me a link. I'd love to check those out. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one.